Winter's almost here, so I thought to put us in the mood, I would give you wintry book a recommendation. So some of these, it's like the whole book that is set in winter. It's part of the story. Some of them is just a couple of scenes, but just good books that I thought you should pick up if you want to get into the mood. Warning, most of these are not super positive, so maybe not the most Christmassy reads, but like, it's winter. Eight Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson could be on your list if you are someone that enjoys murder mysteries already, because some really famous ones are mentioned throughout the book. You follow a character who owns a used bookshop, and he has written some articles online on blog, including one called Eight Perfect Murders, where he talks about the best murder mysteries he has read, the ones he would recommend, and the FBI shows up telling him that someone is recreating these murders, so they have to figure out, did he do it? What's the link? And it is set during winter, so you have those scenes of cold snow, so I feel like it would put you in the mood if you are someone that likes already murder mysteries. So that could be one to check out. I also wanted to recommend Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This one is just a section of it, but still worth mentioning because I do enjoy this book. If you like sci-fi thrillers, you like books that will keep you up until 2 in the morning, this is definitely something you need to check out. You follow this man, he is in his 40s and he's kind of stuck in life. He's not sure he has made the right choices for himself, but he has a wife, he has a son, and one day he is kidnapped, and then when he wakes up, his wife is not his wife, his son is nowhere to be found, and he wants to go back to them at all cost. So a lot of twists and turns, some of them you will definitely not see coming. I thought it was really fascinating, definitely one of his best books, and there is a TV show now that is out, so I would recommend watching that afterward. But yeah, it's just a small section of the book that is wintry, but it's a good book. Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone is a very popular murder mystery that recently came out. The narration is kind of different from the usual ones, so it may or may not work for you, but the main character has to go to this very remote location to have this family reunion, and his whole family has killed someone. So as soon as they arrive, someone is murdered, and I mean, everyone is suspicious since they've all done it before. So the way the book is set up, they do mention that they're not going to do the classic mistakes of murder mysteries. So like I said, you're either going to love this or not. There is a second book that's already out, so you can binge read the series. But the first one, since it is in this remote mountain, there is a snowstorm, it has to be one of them. Very lock room murder mystery, which I tend to love those in general. So definitely very wintry vibes. A Man Called Uvar is more of a contemporary, and this one is also very much set in winter in the beginning. You could kind of say that it's a reflection of his own emotional state, because the main character is like old grumpy man kind of vibes, which not that old, but his wife passed away, so obviously is not in a happy place, but throughout the story he will become friends with his neighbors and obviously changes his whole life, and the weather is going to change with it, but it definitely starts very wintry. So again, if you want something for right now when it's cold to put you in the mood for it, maybe not Christmassy, but very wintry. I feel like in general, winter and grief and these kind of darker themes, they just work well together. I have an excuse to give a shout out to The Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. I loved the series growing up, and I reread it as an adult and I thought it was even better. So do not be fooled by the cover that looks very childish. You can not like YA and even middle grade books and still really enjoy this series, but the first book is definitely very wintry. I mean, the title is The Northern Lights, but the main character, Lara, had quite the childhood, and she finds out that her best friend was kidnapped, so she goes on a mission in the north to try and save him. In that world, it's a fantasy series. Part of their soul is put in a like animal shape. They call that their demon, and a lot happens. But yes, I absolutely adore this, and very, very wintry. You can see again on the cover, there's a giant talking bear. So like, and he's a really cool character, so would recommend. Speaking of fantasy, The Shadow of the Gods, of course, this is Norse mythology inspired, very Viking characters, which not usually my thing, but I actually really did enjoy this series. You have these like giant gods, actually the cover, you can tell there's a person and the giant gods on the cover. I love the magic system. I am really curious to see how things are going to evolve. But like I said, a lot of the characters are very Viking-esque. I really wondered as I was reading how anyone would make it to adulthood. I need to continue this series because I've only read the first book, but again, perfect kind of cold, wintry setting, which works for this recommendation video. Let me include one cute wintry one because kind of have to balance things out a little bit more Christmassy in the holidays. Granted, this is not an all-time favorite, but I think it's worth mentioning because some of you will enjoy this one. I got sucked into reading this romance book because there's a little bit of sci-fi. There's a time loop theme, which I'm a big fan of that. Unfortunately, the time loop kind of just disappears throughout the novel, which I was a little sad about, but if you want to try something that is wintry and romance, this could be one to check out. It's definitely very Christmassy if that's your thing. We're going back to the darker books, No Exit. The main character is on a road trip trying to make it home to her mother who was diagnosed with cancer, and she is stuck having to stop somewhere as there is this wintry snowstorm. And she is stuck there with a couple people, and then things start being weird. Did someone get kidnapped? Who's responsible for it? It has to be one of them. Again, kind of lock room mystery. I love those, so was also curious to get to the end to figure out who did it, so if that's your thing. Kristen Anna is known for her historical fiction novels, including The Great Alone. You have this family that lives in Alaska, obviously very isolated, and there are multiple scenes in the snow. And there are teams of DVs, so do look up trigger warnings, but the father went to Vietnam, he came back with PTSD, and there are consequences to that. It affects her, and you're following the story through the eyes of their daughter, and she is trying to survive and escape. Migrations was an interesting book, to say the least. Once again, you can tell by the cover, very wintry. You found a main character who is part of a world where it's like futuristic a little bit, and climate change is a bit more further advanced, and she wants to follow the last migration, possibly, of these birds. And in order to do that, she convinces this small crew on a fishing boat to follow the birds. And you are seeing her through the novel, kind of getting some flashbacks again about grief, about what happened to her prior to all of this. And it's all set on the water. It's cold. You will definitely get those wintry vibes. I do have to say it's like very, very character driven. I kind of wish we had had a little bit more answer in terms of like what the world is about, which is really not what the book is about. So do be warned, but if you like beautiful writing, this might be for you. One by One is another lock room murder mystery, and you're following this tech company that goes into this isolated cottage for like a work trip, which that's already horror to me. But basically everyone there starts dying one by one, again set in winter, so isolated, they're stuck there, and things happened. Rock, Paper, Scissors is an adult mystery thriller where you're following this couple. They're not feeling as close as they used to, and they end up winning this opportunity to go to this cottage, which is kind of a church actually. And I think it's in the Scottish Islands, and they are there for the weekend trying to reconnect, and things start happening. And again, very wintry vibes, very isolated, so that might work for you also. If you enjoy sci-fi, apocalyptic kind of settings, I would recommend Moon of the Crusted Snow. You're following a Anishinaabe community, and they're isolated in northern Canada when things start happening. So they hear news that like the cities are starting to become very chaotic. They kind of have a few of the people traveling out of those, trying to escape. And of course, who could survive the apocalypse better than people that are already living off the land? So I've read the first book. I'm planning on reading the second one, but in the first book, winter's approaching and then eventually arriving. So again, definitely something that works for the theme of this video. Another one set in winter would have to be I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which this has to be one of the weirdest books I have read, which is going to be hit or miss. You either will love it or hate it. It's very confusing because you don't even have the name of the main female character. She is on a little road trip with her partner, and they're going to meet his family in this remote, I think it's a farm, cottage, and things just get weirder and weirder. I feel like in general, snow and cold make things just creepier and more dangerous and isolated in general. And like I said, with some of these books, it's definitely part of like representation of the inner world of the characters. It's definitely participating into like the whole setting and giving you those vibes. So these are a few of the books that I have read that either have like a big portion or a small portion that is set in winter that might work for you, put you in the mood for winter, some of them the holidays, depending. Most of them probably not, but they should make you feel those feelings, especially if you don't live somewhere that has snow. Currently here we don't have any, but it's a question of time, so I'm not even going to talk about that. I hope you enjoy these quick wintry book recommendations. I would love to know your opinion on these books if you have read them, and if you have more, please leave them in the comment section. I'm sure I will be picking up some during the following weeks, and thumbs up, subscribe as always. I'll put on the screen more videos I would recommend you check out, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.